Hey, good morning, everyone. How are you all doing this morning? Welcome to our Action Plans webinar. Just a couple housekeeping things to begin. If you can hear me, if you can type yes in that chat box so that I know that you can hear you. Hey, JR. So JR can hear me. I want to make sure. Hey, Shannon. Perfect. So this session will be recorded. I am going to start recording right now, so you're able to get a copy of this after we finish. It will take a little bit to render, but you will get it by the end of the day today. It will also be posted on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to get it there. And I am going to go ahead and start my screen share. Today we're going to be talking about creating action plans and client follow-up plans. So you should also be able to see my screen now. I do want to make sure that if at any time during this webinar you have any questions, you feel free to ask them in that chat box or in the questions tab. This is really meant to help you build your business and where you're doing. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to talk about client follow-ups if you don't want to go in and actually create a full action plan. You just are calling your sphere. How do you add follow-ups so that you can start to build that database? And so to do that, you're actually going to go into your contacts and leads section. And what you would do is you would start working your way down. So if I went in and I said, hey, I'm going to actually follow up with Danielle, I'd open her up. I'd say schedule a follow-up. I would type in the follow-up that I was doing. So maybe I was doing something like a listing follow-up, and I would assign the date and the time and click save. Now that has been added to contact information. If I want to see it, I can actually go over to the actions tab, and I can see that right now she's on a buyer action plan. And underneath that, I can see all the other follow-ups that are there. So I can actually see this listing follow-up right here. If you've assigned a follow-up for yourself, you can actually go in and you can edit that follow-up from within the actions tab. So I can actually go in and I can say, actually, this is not going to be due till the 28th, and I can change that information underneath the action portal. This is also where you can add an action plan. We're going to come to that later, but I just do want to give you, I know that everybody's at a different level and runs their business a little differently. So I do want to give you an option if you are going in and you say, okay, now I need to call my next person. Okay, Mary Jo Smith, I need to go in, I need to schedule a follow-up for her. I'm going to follow up with her on the 8th of July, and we're going to talk about the 4th of July parade. And I can click save. So that is one way to go in. I can see there, here it is, pending 4th of July follow-up. When I go back to my home screen, now I can actually see in the next 14 days everything that I have coming up. To see my past due actions, I have to click on past due, and I can actually see everything that's past due on there, or I can just work from my today. So as you're going through and tracking what you're doing with your client database, that is one way to go in and add a follow-up. Something to note is when you're in here actually going in and scheduling a follow-up this way, you are scheduling it by date and time. What we're going to jump into next is a little bit more advanced because it's based on an interval. So instead of being based on a specific date or time, it's based on an interval. So after I add Stephanie to an action plan, it's going to have something due on day 3 and day 5 and day 10 and day 12. So it's not specific dates. The action plans never expire. They just continue to roll. Are there any questions, though, before we jump into how to create automatic action plans on how to do just individual follow-ups with your clients? Awesome. JR, Stacy, Peg, Tanya, Mary, do you have any questions on that portion? Perfect. So what we're going to do is, next is we're going to jump into the listing and client action plans. And I do want to just mention, I know a lot of you have been on our webinar, but part of this is you do have to have some content in your saved content if you're going to fully use these. You don't have to, but it is very helpful to have content in your saved content. To create an action plan, you're going to go to your tools and preferences, and then you're going to go over to my action plans. And in here, I can see a lot of action plans. And over on the right-hand column here, we'll tell you what kind of action plan. So you can have an action plan that is a contact action plan. That means you're applying it to a person. You can also have a listing action plan, and that is something you're applying to a listing. Now, it is possible to have a seller action plan as well as a listing action plan, because you might have an action plan that you're applying to a seller for follow-ups with them and things you need to do for them. And you also might have an action plan that's applied to their listing that are things like take a picture of the sign, post it on social media, make sure you're ordering your postcards, and all of those things. So that is the difference in the two. To start a new action plan, you're going to click the plus new button in the upper right-hand corner. And so when I do that, it's going to pop out this screen. So again, just to recap quickly how I got here, I went to Tools and Preferences, My Action Plans. Then to create a new action plan, I'm clicking on the plus new in the upper right-hand corner. When I do that, I'm going to give the action plan a name. So I'm going to name this action plan my new client action plan. I'm going to put a date on this for my knowledge, just because I've got so many that I've created for demos and things in this account that I want to know that what I need to have. Do not worry at this time about this disable on contact reply. That's something that's coming soon, and we will do training on that when it comes. But after I type that in, I'm going to go ahead and click save. And once I click save, it will tell me the process is complete. And then I will have the option to go in and actually add individual items to the action plan. So when I do that, I just click this plus right here. And now I have the choice of what actions do I need to add to the action plan. So far, are there any questions about how to create a client or contact action plan so far before we get into adding items? Again, we went into Tools and Preferences. We went to My Action Plans. We clicked New. We gave it a name, and we clicked Save. Oh, that's not the one I want to add. Okay, so then we're going to go in and we're going to start adding items. So I'm going to add an item, and the first item we're going to do is an automatic system email. This is one of those things that I said, if you have content built first, you can fully utilize the action plans. So I could actually name this, maybe it's a welcome email. The subject line is going to be, hey, great to meet you. I want it to send out immediately. So immediately would be the same day, but I'm going to have it send out an hour after I add this person to an action plan. I don't want it to be repeated. I want to send it from the owner. So if you are a team leader, you can actually assign this to the agent who has the lead. You can have IQ send it out, or you can send it from the owner, and we're sending it to the contact or lead. Again, if you're a team leader, you can actually have an action plan that you applied to your team members, and you could have things go out to your assigned agents that were emails that said, hey, just want to see where you're at with your contracts and things like that. So that's why that's there. You can add a copy. You can add a blind copy if you'd like. And then right here at the very bottom is where you add your content. So I'm going to click this magnifying glass. And then I'm going to say, okay, it's my content. I want to go into my sphere of influence, or I want to go into my lead letters, and here's my introduction letter, and I'm going to select that. So now I've got the automatic email. It's a welcome email. Hey, great to meet you. I've attached the content that I've already created, and I'm going to click save. Any questions about how to add an automatic email? I'm going to do one more just really quick so you all can see it. So we're going to do an automatic system email. It's going to be just a check-in email. The subject is going to be new listings this week. I'm going to have it go out 10 days after they're added to the action plan. I want it to go out and maybe 20 minutes after they're added. I do want it to repeat. I want it to repeat every 7 days for 100 times so that they're getting a weekly email of the new listing. I want to send it from me, the owner, to the contact. I'm going to go in. I'm going to choose my predetermined content. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to have an e-blast in here. It's going to be this flyer that has a link to my website with all the new listings, and I'm going to click save. How's everybody doing? Stacy, Shannon, Karen, how you doing? Ann, Donna, Mary. Stacy, I'm going to come back to that because it's in a different tab, and I want to show you how to go through all the different types of adding actions, and then we can come back and circle to some of the marketing things. Yep, no worries. So the next type of action that we're going to add is just a follow-up. So if you haven't created your own content and you want to create your own action plan, all of the requests that you're going to do are going to be follow-up requests, because these are things like text or call about voice check-in. And then you can add an actual description if you'd like. This is my monthly check-in call with potential client. It's going to be due, I'm going to have this be due 15 days after. So, and know that when you build these, you need to think about, okay, I had contact with this person. I'm going to call them in a couple weeks. And then after I call them in a couple weeks, maybe I'm going to call them in a month. But before I call, in between that time, I've already sent them a welcome email. I've sent them a weekly email. So now I've got 4 touches in a month. You're going to say, no, you don't want to be blacklisted if it's overdue. You want to repeat it. Yes, I want to repeat it after 30 days. And I want it to repeat 100 times. I want a notification to remind me the day before, and I do not want to be able to snooze or ignore this. If you want to be able to snooze or ignore an action, you can mark this as no. I don't want to be able to snooze or ignore it. So I'm going to click yes, and I'm going to click save. So there's a text voice call. Maybe my follow-up request would be post open house text. And it's going to be due 7 days after or 3 days after. I don't want it to repeat. I'm not going to be on the blacklist. I'm not going to repeat it. I want to be notified the same day, and I'm going to click save. Are there any questions on how to add just a follow-up request? So I do want you to notice over here as we're building, it will tell you what type it is. So I can see a system email, a follow-up request. It will tell me the days and the start times. I can go in, I can edit an action here, or I can delete it over here on this action side. But before we go to the next type, I want to make sure that you understand the follow-up request portion. Since you're all quiet, I'm going to make the educated assumption that you're good to go. Awesome. So here we go in, and we're going to say add another new item. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add them to a campaign. So when we added them an automatic email, that is a one-time email that is not part of a campaign. However, you can have them be added to a campaign. And this might be an events campaign. I want them to be added immediately, and then I choose from the drop down what campaign I want them to be on. So I can say, okay, important date campaign, and they're immediately added. I also want you to know, as we're going through this, that automatic system emails and adding to campaigns are things that the system will automatically do for you. So you're just required to do these follow-up requests that are manual, but anything that's an auto or add to a campaign is something that the system is able to do for you. So I also want you to notice that as I'm putting things in, it's automatically putting them in order so that I have a visual of what's happening. Right now I can see that there's a lot happening in the first 15 days, but there's nothing that's happening after that. Please keep in mind that we had this text call voice check-in, and that's going to be happening once a month. So the last thing we're going to do is say send a survey. And so this is something where you're going to go in and you're going to say this is a maybe it's an open house survey. When do you want that to be due? Maybe you want that to go out 2 days after you meet the person. I'm going to send it to the contact or lead, and I'm going to say, hey, it's the buyer satisfaction or the seller satisfaction questionnaire. This is pulling from the surveys that you've created, and then you push save. So we've gone in, we have created an action plan to get back to it. If we want to go back in and say, okay, we're going to go in, we can add more items, or we can go in and we can edit individual items if we'd like. I do want to just show you quickly, because now we've created a contact action plan, how you go in and you attach it to the client. So I'm going to go back into my customer relations main page, and I'm going to select the client that I'd like to be added. And if they are not assigned to any action plans, you will always have this blue bar at the top. To assign them, you click on this plus assign. And then I'm going to scroll through all the action plans that I've created. And I'm going to choose my action plan. So I'm going to say, okay, here's my action plan that I would like. Click save. Now you notice that blue bar goes away, and I can actually go into the actions and I can see everything that's happening. So everybody feel good about that? Attaching that action plan to a person? Awesome. So what about doing listings? How do you attach or create a listing action plan? Because there's different items that you do for a listing, obviously, than what you do for a client. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to go in, I'm going to click plus new. I'm going to name the action plan price reduction plan. I'm going to choose the action plan type of listings, and I'm going to click save. Again, it's created the same way a contact action plan is, and now we're going to add those items. So I click plus items, and now I have some of the same options. Automatic system email we've done, follow-up requests, add to campaign, and send survey. So adding these items acts exactly the same as it does on a contact. What I would like to go through are what these lower items are. So if I want to order marketing items, I'm going to say order reduced postcards. I want it to be due immediately. I want it to be something that's visible to the seller, yes or no. And is it required, yes or no? This visible to the seller means when the seller goes to their portal on your website, and is it an option here where they're seeing, okay, here's my information. This is what my agent is doing. So it would be an option that would show up here. That's what visible to seller means. choose yes or no, click save, and then it's added. I can go in and I can add a social share. So I might say share on Facebook and Insta. I want it to be due 2 days later. I want to be notified 1 day before. It's visible to the seller and it's required for me. I might want to do that social share once a week. We are working on getting a repeat button for this. Right now there's not. So if you want to share it more than once, you need to go in and add it multiple times for this. So it's on day 2 and it's on day 14. You can add multiple things on that nature. The next thing on there is add the seller. So this is when you go into a listing, and I'm going to show you where it is, adding the seller to that listing to make sure that they can get the seller reports and that they can have a seller portal. So I'm going to say seller listing attachment, and I want that to be due immediately. So now I can see in my listing action plan, I've got order my postcard, attach my seller to the listing, share my listing on social media. I've got all those things right here in my listing action plan. The other things that are in here are set up your seller reports, set up your showing preferences. A website URL is something, it will automatically send you the website URL, attach a video or a virtual tour. Do you have any questions about these lower parts? Do you want me to add them to show you how to do it? It works very similarly. Or should we jump into a listing and see how it attached and like what that adding the seller is and what those seller reports are? Okay, so I've got this in here. I'm going to click save, and now we're going to actually go into the listing so that you can see what some of these are. So the first thing I want to just mention to y'all is you get a listing email that looks similar to this. I'm just sharing it with you right now. So you get a listing email that looks similar to this, that has all your website URLs. It's got your flyer and it's got your just listed property postcard. So know that you should be getting that and you should be watching it. It comes from us. It's generated automatically when you get a new listing. But what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go in and we're going to actually just look at a listing. I'm actually going to look at an active listing. So here's my listing in IQ. I can easily, I'm going to just make this screen a little bit bigger so you can see it better. There's an actions tab here. When I say add the seller, what it's doing is it's saying, okay, this is blank, so I need to add the seller in. But if that's part of my action plan, I can actually go into actions, add a plan. I can say, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do this. And now I can see all my, and because the seller is already attached, so that here I've got this video was 8 hours ago. So and I get my action. It's taking the postcard or forward. I had a question that was the listing is automatically sent from MLS to IQ. Yes, IQ is automatically pulling your listings from your MLS as often as your MLS will export them and updating. Karen, I moved my microphone a little bit closer, so hopefully that helps. So now my order item, action, I'm within the postcard ordering form. I'm actually going to go through and I'm going to say, okay, I need a price reduced. I'm going to choose my postcard. It's going to automatically insert all of the information about the listing. So see, it's updating all the information. And once I order those postcards, it's going to complete that item. So instead of having to go through a whole bunch of steps or remember to order postcards, or you're working your paper checklist for a client, you can actually just create a listing action plan, apply it to the listing, and then work your plan. I'm going to refresh this because I don't want to wait that long for it to process. I'm in a demo site, so know that yours would not take that long. I'm going to click save, and then I'm going to go into action. So here's my plan. When it's talking about going in and adding showing information, so some of you use technology from your MLS to schedule your showings. Some of you use technology from your lockboxes to schedule showings. And I'm sure some of you are just keeping track mentally of what's being shown. If you don't have a showing software, know that you can actually go in and use the IQ office as the showing requests. You can put your instructions for the other agent, you can put your directions for the property, and then your personal notes about the showings for you here, like, hey, seller wants only 24-hour notice. You can confirm it by the agent. You can choose to have the seller notified. You can make sure that you get a reminder, but that's what this tab is all about. The seller reports are underneath reports. So when we were talking about actions and having an set up seller reports, it's talking about this tab. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to add my seller in, and then I'm going to set up my competition. So I'm going to say, hey, the price range for this one is $330 to $370. The square foot, it needs to be at least 1,500 square feet. It needs to have at least 3 bedrooms. And then I can go in and I can say, okay, community, it needs to actually be within this community. I can say, hey, here's the communities. I can say it needs to be close to this building. I can also go in and I can scroll on a map and say, hey, it actually needs to be within this square. On the right-hand side shows what you're going to do. So do you want listing details, activity reports? If you're not using this for showings, please uncheck the box. Web activity report, competition. You can preview that report by clicking preview. Here it all is, how it's appearing in search reports. And you can set this up to actually send every week, every 2 weeks, or every month. So the nice thing about this is when you go into your listing appointment, so you're going in, you've got the appointment to talk to someone about listing their home, and you can say, hey, you know, I know we talked about price a little bit, but what I really want to do is tell you how I make sure I'm staying on top of the tasks and marketing your property and doing the right thing. And what I'm going to do is you're going to get a weekly report from me that shows everything that's happening with your listing, all the web activity, and that's going to automatically come to you. I also am going to track all my showings, and you're going to get a showing report as well. I'm going to go in and I actually have a digital checklist that I work that makes sure that I'm completing my tasks, and that's available within your seller portal so that you can see what I'm doing and how I'm working on your listing. Within that seller portal, you are also able to share this on social media, so you have the ability to see and help promote your listing as well. JR, so if your company, so some companies are using the software for showings and some are not. This showings tab, though, you can actually go in and I can say, hey, I'm going to create a seller request. The agent is Karen. She's going to show it on Wednesday between 4 and 4:30. It's confirmed. It's actually going to be a preview for her client. And now I can click save. So some offices are actually using this as they're setting up their showing. So they're all in here. Some offices are not, and they're using the software from the MLS. If the software your MLS is using, it will, yeah, so JR, that is a question for your management. I do not know the answer to that. But this showing report, only in your reports, this is pulling from this tab. So if there's no information here, it can't. And so JR said, does this Showing Time does this on MLS? Will this transfer? And I don't know. So if Showing Time would provide a feed, I'm sure that it could. I don't know how long it would take to build that feed and make it work. I also don't know if Showing Time will do that. So it's a question for your manager to definitely ask and figure out, and maybe for your MLS, to ask your MLS. Good question though. Are there other questions about the things underneath this action plan? So I can actually go in and I can say, okay, I'm going to complete this social share, and notice it brings up, and I can actually share it right here directly to my Facebook. So it's not just a reminder, but by going in and actually saying, hey, I want to tweet this, it's going to actually pull that information up for you so that you're doing things within a click rather than, okay, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go here and I'm going to go here and I'm going to go here. Questions about listing action plans. We're about 30 minutes in. There was a question that came up earlier about how to create your own content. And I do want to make sure that I get that answered. I'm going to just briefly touch on that. But before we go to that, I want to make sure that you understand everything that's available to you within these action plans for contacts and for listings. Are there any questions on that? Cool. Thank you, Karen. One last thing before we go into marketing is if you go up to your profile and you click on your profile, underneath your preferences, about halfway down, there's a section that says default action plans. So you can actually assign an action plan to a new listing or a just reduced action plan automatically. I can go in and I can say, okay, I want to actually say my new listing action plan. Then when you get a new listing, it automatically applies that listing action plan to the new listing. If you have a price reduction, you can actually go in and you can say, okay, I'm going to do my price reduction plan. I click save, and now the system is seeing a price reduction came through, a new listing came in. These are the plans that automatically need to be applied. You also can apply an action plan for new leads that come in automatically the same way. So you go in and you'd say, okay, I need to actually go in and I'm going to choose my online lead action plan for all new leads that come in. Again, we got there by going to your name, then your profile, preferences, and about halfway down. So going in and creating marketing content to actually attach to these action plans, you're going to go into your marketing and you're going to go to My Saved Content. And when you do that, you can see all the content that you've already created, but you also can go up and click Add Content. And this is where you can go in. You can actually write letters with blank content. You can create holiday cards. You can create agent promotion e-blasts. You can go and create mailers. Your company may have company templates for you to use that you can go in and you can use. So once you've selected what you'd like to do, you would go in, you would change the name, and then you can edit the content. So add content. And then you're going to go ahead and select the content. And then you can go in and you can actually edit the content. For searching purposes, it does make a lot of sense to go in and name these. And add them to a category. It just really helps when you're searching to actually have that functionality, so that when you're here underneath your action plans and you're adding an automatic email, it's easier if you have it categorized here, and you can say, hey, lead letters, here it is. So that's how you go in and you actually create content. You go marketing, my saved content, then plus add content in the upper right-hand corner. And then you can go in and actually add auto emails to your action plans. Other questions? All right. So the recording of this, I will send out to information reference. Before I get off the call, I do want to share a YouTube channel and search. So our YouTube channel is report, and you can actually just come here and you can search. I'll get closer again. So I can go in and click action plans and click search, and it will bring up all of the videos that are available to you for action plans, including the webinar. The YouTube channel name is Realistic Support. So the other thing that's available is our Facebook page. And this is our Facebook page group. It's called Realistic Users. And this is a place where you can actually ask questions for real-time answers, best practices, how do I questions. These are really focused on, sorry, I didn't mean to click there. These are really focused on how do I question, but not help desk questions. So here's the YouTube channel. I can go in and I can actually search, and I can say action plans. I can actually search and say marketing items. Oop. And it will bring up all of the information. So here's the YouTube channel, here's the Facebook page. We really want you to be engaged. We really want to make sure you're getting all the information that you can. If there's other people in your office that are not part of that page, please invite them to be a member of that page. We want them to get answers. And that's all I've got for you. We will meet next Monday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, and I look forward to helping you all. If there are no other questions, I'm going to hang on the line for just a couple more minutes to make sure. But I do want to make sure that you have enough time in the day. You're very welcome.